Okay, so I'll continue with one more slide in regards to new information, and then after that what I'll do is I will go ahead and review for your quiz, which will be on tomorrow. It says use your calculator to approximate the value and make sure that your calculator is in radians. So we have arc tangent of negative 8.45, arc sine of 0.2247, and arc cosine of 2. So I know that you don't have a calculator at the moment, but I'm actually going to do it here on the computer with you. Again, the first thing that you need to do is check to see if your calculator is in radian mode. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, so I have a calculator emulator here on my computer. So what I'm going to do is press the mode button, make sure that it's in radians, and it is in radians, so I'm good to go. So the first one is arc tangent. Remember that even though you don't see the arc button on there, you actually do know that this basically means the inverse tangent, and there is an inverse. If you notice, I don't know if you can see it or not, but right under or right above the tangent button is the inverse function of each of those. So here is the inverse sine, inverse cosine, and inverse tangent. So all you have to do is press second tangent, and that pops up. And just type it in, negative 8.45, and it should match up with the answer that we have up there, which is negative 1.453001, or 3 decimal places, negative 1.453. The next one is arc sine. So again, press second, but this time you're going to press the sine button, which pops up the inverse notation, 0.2247, so 0.2247, and then you get 0.226351523. 3 decimal places will be 0.227. Then after that is arc cosine of 2, so press second, cosine, type in 2, and you get an error message. Well, if you think about it, the reason why you get an error message is because if we were transpose this, this would basically say, where is cosine equal to 2? And you know that cosine, if you look at your unit circle, will never be equal to 2 anywhere, mainly because the cosine and the sine functions range from negative 1 to 1 in regards to domain for the inverse. Okay, so those are some calculator exercises. You will probably have some of those as freebie points later on in your test that will cover this section. At this point, that is all of the new info that I will have. Now let's go ahead and go on to your review for your quiz. Okay, so here is your review for your quiz. It says state the period for A, the amplitude for B, your vertical shifts, if any, for C, your horizontal shifts, if any, for D, and then make sure to box in every answer. And they're each going to be worth 25 points. So let's take a look at the first one. G of x is equal to 2 plus sine of x minus pi. And what I am going to do is, because, let's see, I believe I have it on my website. Let's see. We're running out of time, so what I want to do is go ahead and see. I think I have it here. Yeah. I want to go ahead and give you the generic equation. Remember, the one that looks like this. We've seen it. And let's just go ahead and put it underneath here so that we're used to it. Make it smaller. If if I can. So let's control. Yeah. Okay, and what I'm going to do is, because I can't write on here, I'm going to basically color code. So I'm going to say that my period will be color coded as green, my amplitude will be color coded as red, my vertical shifts will be color coded as turquoise, and my horizontal shifts will be color coded as we'll say gray, or we'll use this pink color. Okay, so let's look at the first one. G of x is equal to 2 plus sine of x minus pi. Alright, so in this case, is x, in other words, does x right here already have a coefficient of 1? It does have a coefficient of 1, therefore I'm ready to go. I don't need to do anything to it, so let's calculate a, the period. I'm probably going to have to do this like this. Okay. Okay, so if I calculate the period, I need to save this as a different file. Let's see, I'm looking for it right quick. 4.5, let's see. Here we go. Let's see if that will let me. No, it won't. Okay, so we'll just work with what we have. The period, and it sucks that I can't do it the way that I want it to, but that's okay. Period is equal to 2 pi over n. Okay, I don't like to do it that way, but that's fine. And so we have 2 pi over, in this case, n is right here, and even though you don't see it, it is a 1. So we have 2 pi over 1. So here my period would be 2 pi. Pretty sure I can type in the pi in here. Okay, 2 pi right there. So let's go ahead and just copy all of these into the Greek letter. Okay, so we get 2 pi over n, 2 pi over 1, which is equal to 2 pi. So we will color that as my period. Next is my amplitude. My amplitude is always positive. In this case, it's always in front of your trig. So if you look here, my amplitude, even though you don't see it, is a 1. But if you have to place it in there, go ahead and do that. So my amplitude is actually a 1. Next is your vertical shifts. So let's look at our vertical shift. It's right here. That means it's the one off to itself. It's the one that's separated, and it's not with all of this junk right here. So my vertical shift at this point is 2, and it's positive. Therefore, that means it must be shifting it up 2 units. Okay, so next we have our horizontal shift. And if you think about it, our horizontal shift here is negative pi, so we have to think the opposite. So the opposite of a negative pi is, of course, a positive pi. And so that means we're going towards the right direction. Okay, that is number one. Let's take a look at number two and see what's going on there and see if we can do anything. First off, right off the bat, we don't need to factor anything out here because x already has a coefficient of 1. So we can go ahead and just do our amplitude. Amplitude is in front of your trig function. So here's my amplitude. So in this case, it will be 7. So B will be amplitude, and that's highlighted in red. Next is let's do vertical shift. Vertical shift is anything that's separated from all of this other junk. Is there a vertical shift in this case? There is no vertical shift, but if you want to, just to feel safe, you could always say 0 plus. And that would be your vertical shift, and that is in turquoise. Then you could also go ahead and do your horizontal shift. So if you notice, the opposite of positive pi over 2 is negative pi over 2. So let's go ahead and say my horizontal shift is actually negative pi over 2. And because it's negative, that means it's actually going towards the left direction. So let's highlight my horizontal shifts. And here's my horizontal shift. Okay, so all I have left for this one to do is to find the period. So I'm going to go ahead and say P is equal to 2 pi over n, which is equal to 2 pi over one over 3, like that. Okay, at this point, this is a copy, change, flip. So if you don't understand it, let's copy the first one. So I'm going to do it here on Paint. I'm going to copy the first one, which is 2 pi. Then I'm going to change it to multiplication. And then I'm going to flip this 1 over 3 will now become 3 over 1. And if I multiply everything, this 2 pi is the same thing as saying 2 pi over 1. 2 pi times 3 is 6 pi over 1, or simply 6 pi. So in this case, equals 6 pi. And that would be my period. Okay, that's number one. Number two is that. Let's go ahead and do number 4 first. Okay, 4 says h of x is equal to negative 2 plus 4 sine of x plus 2. That's very simple because first of all, let's go ahead and see if x has a coefficient of 1. In this case, it does. So we're good to go. Let's just go ahead and start labeling. Let's save that period for last. So let's do the amplitude. Amplitude is always in front of your trig, and it's always positive. So in this case, my amplitude is 4, and that will be color-coded red. The next part is your vertical shift. If you realize, here's your generic equation. Vertical shift is always separate from all the other junk.